A lot of people have dogs that do destructive chewing. Maybe they chew up your shoes, your couch, your pillows, whatever it may be. Destructive chewing is very common. It's important to remember that dogs don't naturally understand what they're allowed to chew on and what they're not allowed to chew on. So it's our job to teach them that. And the main reason why dogs chew in the first place is because they're bored. They're looking for something to do. And in dog world, things that are fun to do are things like digging, things like barking, and things like chewing. It's a very natural, normal dog behavior, even though it might be unpleasant to us humans. So when it comes to destructive chewing, we've got to talk about prevention, and then we got to talk about treatment. So first, let's talk about prevention. So often, instead of worrying about how do we actually train the dog, I like to think about, can we just prevent this behavior from happening in the first place? Because prevention is so much easier oftentimes than actual training, and faster too. So the most basic thing is, keep things that your dog can chew out of reach. If your dog is chewing up your shoes, don't leave your shoes out. Put them away. If you like to keep your sweatshirt hung over the kitchen chair and your dog then jumps up and bites the end of it, don't leave your sweatshirt out in the kitchen. Really, that's all it is. If you don't leave things out for the dog to chew, the dog can't chew it. I will be the first to admit, I was the messiest person in the world before I got a dog. But having a dog forced me to be clean because when I was leaving stuff out, it was getting chewed up. So step one of preventing it is just put your stuff away. Now maybe our dog is chewing up things that are not specific items. Maybe your dog, instead of just chewing up your shoes or your sweatshirt, is going after bigger things like table legs or, chair legs. Things that are just part of the house that need to stay there. Well, again, since we're talking about prevention, it's important to think about the layout of our house. Can we do things to keep the dog out of those areas? Sometimes it's as simple as just shutting doors, but if you need, you can also use things like baby gates to help block off areas. Destructive chewing is very, very common in puppies, but it can also happen with adult dogs as well. And if you're wondering if certain rooms or your house or apartment or whatever is safe from chewing, here's the test. If you have a small dog, you're gonna lay down on the floor. And if you have a medium to large dog, I want you to get down on all fours, on your knees and on your hands. And then what you're gonna do when you're in that position, whether you're laying flat on the floor or down like that, is I want you to just put your head up and look around. Whatever you see from that position, that is what is at risk of getting chewed on by your dog. So if you see anything in that position, get those things out of the dog's reach. So now let's talk about some treatments. So often when we have a dog with a behavior problem, all we want to do is tell the dog, no, bad dog, stop doing that. But the problem with this is then we're leaving it up to the dog to guess what do we want them to do. So a dog that's doing destructive chewing, I much prefer we have a way to tell the dog, listen, dog, I want you to do this when I'm gone. And when we tell the dog to do that, they're not going to be chewing the table, the chair, the shoes, the sweatshirt. The best way to do this is puzzle toys. And this is especially helpful if your dog does the majority of the chewing when you're not home. Puzzle toys are toys that you can put food into. And then the dog has to figure out, how do I get this food out? I'll put a link in the description of this video to some of my favorite puzzle toys I'd highly recommend. But they really are great because every time the dog is getting a piece of food out, he's being rewarded for chewing the proper thing. And people who have dogs with severe destructive tendencies, I like those people to feed their dogs their entire meals out of puzzle toys. Instead of putting the food in the bowl and it's gone in 10 seconds, you split up your dog's dinner into 6 different puzzle toys. And then you hide those puzzle toys, and now the dog has to spend 2 hours getting their food out. It's so much mental stimulation, it's so much fun for the dog, and it's telling the dog what we want them to do. Now, what happens if we catch our dog in the act? Again, we want to tell them what to do instead. Dog's chewing on the table leg, I try to interrupt the behavior. And then out comes a toy. I'm not mad, I'm not angry at the dog. Even if they destroyed something, guess what? It was my fault for allowing the dog to get bored. So out comes the toy, I try to redirect them. Come on, let's go, get this. You try to get the dog to play with it. If it's a squeaker toy, you squeak it. If it's rope toy, you try to kind of wave it in front of them. Movement is very exciting for dogs, but you try to redirect them to chew on what you want them to chew on. Now, if you notice that your dog is always chewing on specific things, you can try sprays as a deterrent. I'll put a link in the description for some bitter sprays as well. But essentially what happens is whatever it is that the dog is chewing on, you're gonna spray this disgusting tasting spray on. The dog's gonna go, they're gonna chew on it, and they're gonna go, oh, this is not good tasting. They're gonna be less likely to do it again. Now, this only works when your dog specifically chews on areas that you can predict, and then you can spray on in advance. But if this happens, then it's a good thing to do. A couple other alternatives you can use are lemon juice, cayenne pepper, or even just hot sauce, Tabasco. Trying to just look for a reason to punish our dog for chewing is not the solution. The solution is telling the dog what we want them to do and making sure that they understand what it is we want them to do. Now, there also are some other things to consider with destructive chewing. Destructive chewing can be a sign of a dog that has separation anxiety. That's one of the ways that separation anxiety comes out. It's also important to remember that physical exercise is so critical for a well-behaved dog. When a dog is under exercise, and I want you to imagine a sort of chemical builds up in their brain. When that chemical is fully built up, it's the equivalent of us humans having 20 cups of coffee and then another 20 Red Bulls on top of that. You've got so much caffeine, you're so crazy, you don't know what to do, you can't think, you're just gonna take it, you can just chew and chew and chew and chew. That's the feeling a dog gets when they're not physically exercised properly. And to get that energy out of their system, it can come in the form of barking, of digging, or very often, destructive chewing. So making sure that we're getting our dog out for at least once walk a day, ideally 2, or at least a chance to go somewhere at the park, the dog park, wherever, to just run and burn off that energy, that can also help to reduce the destructive chewing. So give those things a try, and if you do, you should see a reduction in destructive chewing pretty quickly. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you need any extra help training your dog, check out my website, brightdog.com.